Hi, I would like to spend just a few minutes in our APA manual because often our dissertation students are wondering, what am I supposed to put in this section? And a lot of the answers are found in the APA manual. If you want to take a second and grab your APA manual with me and turn to Chapter 3, you'll notice that Chapter 3 uses the acronym JARS. JARS stands for Journal Article Reporting Standards. And so we're going to take a look at those because they will also help us know what it is that we're reporting in various parts of our dissertation. Let's start with the quantitative dissertation. When I am writing about my research, the abstract will be written last. So you want to skip the abstract to start with, but when it is time to do your abstract, please note that on page 73, there are some standards for a comprehensive summary that will go in the front of your dissertation. In the abstract, it needs to be packed with information, and there are some characteristics that we look for in a good abstract. So APA says it's accurate, it's non-evaluative, it's coherent, it's readable, it's concise. Your problem needs to be stated in one sentence. You need to quickly review your participants or your data sources, talk about how you conducted measurements and basic findings that you found, and then wrap up with a quick conclusion and implication, all in just a limited number of words. So that is found in APA edition 7 on pages 73 and 74 when it's time to write your abstract. For qualitative research, we have reporting standards beginning on page 93 or section 3.13 of the APA manual. And authors get to decide about how they want their sections to be organized. But usually in qualitative research, we talk about findings instead of using the word results. And we talk about those rationale for those descriptions of how our method was chosen and applied. We also talk about taking your raw data from interviews or for looking at documents or conducting observations and how that is going to be used as evidence for your findings. So starting with section 314, it talks about the standards for giving an overview of your design, talking about your data collection strategies, what approach did you use, or what approach of inquiry did you use, and then being sure that you describe the researcher's background and their prior understandings that they are bringing as they study this phenomenon or whatever it is that they're studying for their qualitative study. Then you'll find several pages of charts with some really good information about talking about, again, that researcher. You're coming with some background knowledge, certainly, and that does give us some preconceived ideas. And so how are we going to manage those, or how were those managed in the study? Talking about the demographic, cultural, ethnic descriptions or characteristics of your participants. Talking about also those for the researcher, if those had an impact on the study, the training that the researcher or researchers have had. Talking about any archival searches or things like that that were done to collect data. That's all in the APA manual there, page 99 and 100. Give more information on that. When we talk about qualitative studies, there's no minimum number necessarily of participants according to the APA book. Your dissertation chair and your methodologist will help with that, but you do have to provide a rationale for the number of participants that were chosen. You do need to talk about the method of recruiting those participants and, of course, any institutional review board approvements that were obtained. Talk about the data collection. What format of questions did you use? Did you have open-ended questions? Did you have written prompts? Talk about how you then analyze the data. So that would come under your methodology. Talking about your coding and analyzing by themes. Maybe you went through and you formed categories or units. Talk about how that was done. And then highlight procedures to support integrity in the study. So maybe you're going to talk about the researchers' perspectives and how those were managed. Talk about the findings were grounded in the evidence. That is so important in a qualitative study. Using quotes or excerpts from the data to show how you engaged in the data and came to certain themes. Talking about the meaningfulness of the data in relation to prior research that was conducted. Talk about the meaningfulness of the data, how it relates to the research question or to the goals of the research or the purpose of the research. Also, when you're talking about the findings, sometimes it's important, I would maybe not say sometimes, but it is important to talk about the context of those findings. Those particular participants have a context that might not be the same if you repeated the study with a different group of participants. And so talk about that context of the study. Also, in a qualitative study, you can talk about supplemental checks that were used to validate your data. Like maybe you took the transcripts and you returned them to the participants for them to check. Maybe use a triangulation of data from multiple sources. You checked on interview thoroughness in a certain way, or if you had multiple interviewers conducting interviews, you did inter-rater reliability. What were those methods that you used to collect the data? And talk about researcher reflexivity too, as they went back and reflected over field notes or memos or observation notes. Then when it's time to report the findings of a qualitative study, look back at section 315, talking about themes or categories, narratives. How were those derived from the data? And talking about the meanings and the implications of those findings. Then when you move into the discussion section, which is typically done in chapter 5 of the dissertation, go back to the APA manual, section 316, and describe the contributions of your research, describe the similarities and differences of your findings to other findings, talk about how your findings can best be utilized, being sure that you're stressing how your findings are grounded in the data that was collected. As you move into study implications, another section in chapter 5 of your dissertation, talk about how the findings can be used in the real world. Talk about theoretical insights or new understandings that can happen because of your study. I hope that this information has been helpful to you, and just wanted to tell you how many neat things can be found in this APA manual that are going to help you as you write that dissertation.